Thank you,
God
brother.
bless you.
Thank you. You all stop that booing. Tim Duncan and I used to have little jokes when we would come out, and as soon as I was introduced, everybody would go, Bruce. And Tim would say, why do they keep booing you? I said, see, that's the problem with you, Tim. You come from the islands. You guys didn't have electricity for a long time and things of that nature, so you don't get those kinds of things. I'm sure he can hear me right now with those ears he has. All right, let's keep that one between us. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all, and what a blessing it is to have the Arms of Hope in existence today. A lot of the kids dealing with the challenges of reality. Reality is the challenges that they're dealing with. And unfortunately, we can't choose our family at times. I know I feel that way a great deal a lot of times, but that's another story. But when reality sets in, how do we handle those things? That's the key to figuring out life, I believe. A lot of these kids, people tell them different things, and they don't realize how important it is that when the child is old enough to walk, I shouldn't say old enough to walk, once we start breathing, there's this tank that we have as kids. And it's important for us to receive love. It's called the love tank. And when a child doesn't receive that love from their parents, I'm so thankful that God can implement other people in their lives to make sure they get those things, because it is necessary. You're sitting listening to a guy who didn't receive that love as a child, that was still able to accomplish some of the things that I have only by the grace of God. I'm so thankful every day for the people God has blessed me with in my life, because I didn't have it like others did. That's not to minimize anybody else's struggles, but mine were some challenges. And I learned very early on that life doesn't stop just because you've been dealt a bad hand. You must continue on. My biological mother was a drug addict. I lived maybe 6 years with my mother growing up. My grandmother did a lot of rearing of me, but there were other issues there as well. My biological father was an alcoholic. So when I talk about love and affection, I didn't get those things from my mother and my father. Parents, I believe, are a blueprint to kids. It's what we learn. It's what we see. We have so much of the DNA of our family in us that at some point we start to act out what we see. I was fortunate enough that I've had other people in my life to show me the right way, show me the way that God would have me to go. And so when I see these stories of young men and young women going through the hardships that they don't deserve, the first thing I think of is that's the harsh reality. It's a harsh reality. It's the reality that no one wants to admit to. It's the reality that no one can necessarily explain, because I didn't understand why I was always walking to sporting events by myself. I didn't understand why my grandfather didn't particularly care too much for me, but once I started dribbling the basketball, I became his favorite grandson. Please don't laugh, because I had a hard time dealing with that. No, that was a joke now. You guys go. I was just seeing if you guys are with me. But I really did. And there's so many psychological things that I went through because of what I was going through as a kid. Now, here it is. This man, he wasn't my biological grandfather, but he was the one that was in the same town as me with my grandmother, and my grandmother took me in. But he made a difference between me and his grandkids. So he walked in the door, me and my cousin Simone, we would be, hey, Dad, and he just kind of, yeah. Now, when I think of my kids, and then when they run to me and they're like, Poppy, I'm like, oh, give it to me. for a man to walk by a kid knowing that he's just a kid, it shows to me that that man has some serious demons that maybe he didn't have anybody to talk to, or maybe he didn't receive the love he should have. And what happens is it's a continual cycle that goes on. My biggest goal is to break that cycle. I want to break the cycle of what has gone on in my family for years. I talk to some of my cousins from time to time, and I remember my Uncle Daryl, love my Uncle Daryl. He used to do things like he would come get me so that I would be around family and learn what it was to worship, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I didn't always worship. I was a little kid that didn't know anything about prayer or anything like that. And my Uncle Daryl didn't know too much about prayer as well, but something happened in his life, and he got saved. And so because he got saved, he was going to let everybody know. And so his family, they started going to church more and developed a stronger relationship. I had been in church, but I hadn't been in a Pentecostal church before. Some of you all know where I'm going with this. And so my Uncle Daryl, we're playing, me and my cousins, there's 3 other cousins that I have, and we're playing, and he's like, okay, y'all, come on, it's time to pray. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Pray? We don't ever pray. What? And they looked at me like, my daddy's serious, Bruce, don't play. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, let's go pray. So we go in the living room, and we hold hands, and this, understand, this is new to me with my Uncle Daryl, because I remember some of those Slits Malt liquor parties he used to have. So, we hold hands and we bow our heads, and, he leads it off, and I'm kind of, and the Bible says, watch and pray. Watch and pray. And so I got one eye open, and all of a sudden my uncle starts going through, his praise and jumping up and down and speaking in tongues. And again, I'm a kid, I'm about 9 years old, and I'm like, and for some reason, and you all know it, with kids, we tend to laugh at the most inopportune times. And so I'm trying to hold my laughter in, and my cousin Terry, he and I, we got in a lot of trouble together because we're the same age, and we had a good time. So he starts laughing, and next thing you know, now his other brother is starting to, and my uncle stops and he looks at me and says, Brucey, hush. And I'm like, why's it got to be me? I wasn't the only one laughing. But that's where I learned that, it wasn't just a show, even though I felt like that's what my uncle was putting on at the time. But it wasn't about a show. It was about a relationship. It was about true praise to God. It was about my uncle thanking him for all the things that God had brought him out of. I didn't get that early on because, I was a 9-year-old. Now, I go back even further. I believe that my first introduction to Christ was with my great-grandmother. Great-grandmother lived in a country called not a country. It's in California, but it was considered the country to me. It's called Doss Palace. There were about 300 people there when I was 3 years old, and my grandmother would drop me off there, and I would spend 2 weeks there with her, and she didn't have a TV. I'm 3. I need my Mr. Magoo. I need my Bugs Bunny. And so, we would listen to the radio at night. This is something that she had an outhouse. She didn't have a bathroom until I was 13 years old. So some of you all know a little bit about an outhouse, but there's a lot of you that are like, what outhouse? So is that like the guest house? No. You find books in the outhouses, but they're not for reading. See, that went over some of the youngsters' heads here. And so, I would go to church with her. And, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know what was in store. My great-grandmother taught me discipline. She taught me that the Lord chastens the ones he loves. And so will your great-grandmother when you act up in church. I go to Oak Hills, and there's some members here today, and as they know, they have kiddie church or somewhere you can put your kids at, where they won't act up in a regular service. See, they didn't have that when I was a kid. So, after a while, 3-year-old, he gets a little bored after some of the songs, and, I started doing other things. My grandmother would say, "Little Bruce, all right, now, if I have to tell you again, you're going to get a whooping when we get home." Now, I know I said whooping. Now, that's what they were. They were whoopings. It wasn't no CPS being called because somebody said they were going to get a whooping. That was a form of discipline. And so, what I do, okay, you get that's that 2-minute warning deal that the man was talking about here earlier. And so, I would straighten up. Oh, okay. Oh, she said whooping. I don't like those. Let me get right. And then, 3-year-old, let me get to doing something else. Next thing you know, a hymnal flies in the air and I'm catching it. Now, again, I know that wasn't right now, but that was the athlete in me. But I tell you, she knew how to put that athlete down. And so she say something to me again. I'm like, uh-oh, I think I really pushed the envelope here. So I crawl in her lap and I go to sleep. Well, my great-grandmother had the best memory because when we got home, you were there? When we got home, we undressed and it was only one room. Then all of a sudden she walked out the front door. Now, there was nothing out there for her. The garden was in the back. There was a switch tree out front that, man, and as a kid, you're like, la, 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 la. I look out the window like, oh, no. Where's she go? Oh, she gonna get that one. And I see her go, and then that, see, some of you all knowing something about those switches, but that was the rod of correction for me. That was the rod of correction. And afterwards, she would hold me. She would hold me. And she let me know that she loved me. Even though she disciplined me, she let me know that she loved me. I didn't get that a lot coming up. So I bounced around from home to home to home. Family member, friend, family member, friend. Whenever I did something wrong, it was time for me to go. She was the only one that loved me in spite of who I was. And so, as I continued on in life, I developed this harsh outer core. This harsh outer core that didn't want to be hurt. And so because I didn't want to be hurt, I shut myself off to a lot of things in life. Love and affection were one of them. I wouldn't let people get close to me because my thought process is, if I let you get close to me, all you're going to do is hurt me like those that have hurt me in the past. Here it is. The most wonderful thing about kids, I think, is that we continue to love again, no matter what. Because there are some kids in here that continue to love their parents in spite of the abuse, in spite of the verbal abuse. Because there's something as a kid that you just feel like, okay, you know what? This will be the day. This will be the day when my mom's going to love me. This will be the day that my dad is going to say, hey, son, I'm proud of you. Those were days that I always looked forward to, but unfortunately, they weren't there for me. They just weren't there for me. My biological father, as a little boy, in school, kids pick on you. They say things. We had this game called the Dozens. We talk about, oh, but look at your hair. It's so nappy. It's blah, 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 blah. And I know, yeah, I used to have hair, But the thing about kids is there's a harsh reality with kids. They'll cut you to the core. And they'll say things like, I mean, it was known that my mother had a drug problem even from in school, and some kid, well, at least I know where my mama at. And I had to kind of, but deep down inside, I really needed to deal with that. And I hadn't dealt with that. It took me maybe 35 years before I truly dealt with the issues of my childhood. 35 years. I'm 39 years old. It took me 35 years to truly deal with those issues. And it's only by the grace of God that I have been able to become the man that I am today. And that's a man that's still in training. And so as we continue to forgive, you know, I wanted so bad to be able to talk about my father, you know, when other kids are talking about theirs. But I really couldn't talk too much about him because I didn't know him. When we would hang out together, when he would decide to show up and pick me up sometimes, I didn't know the man. And so he decided one time, hey, we're going to have a business. You're going to come spend the summer with me, and we're going to have a business together. And I'm like, all right. Hey, I get a chance to get to know my father. This is my father. You know, some of the earliest memories I have of him was going to his basketball games. I remember he took off his jersey and threw it towards the bench, and it slid up under the bleacher. And I saw it, and so I ran down, and I went to go get it, but my arm got stuck underneath the bleacher. Now, I'm 4 years old. My arm is stuck. 4-year-olds cry when things get a little hectic. And so I started crying. They had to stop the game, help me out, and the look on his face was not a look of pride when that happened. I remember this like it was yesterday. And so I say this because it's about breaking that cycle. As I said earlier, my son would cheer for me at the games, and it was nothing more that I loved more than anything else than doing an interview with him in my lap. And so I would do that quite a bit because of what took place with me as a kid, watching the man that I loved. And so when he talked about us doing this business together, I'm like, that'd be fantastic. It was a lawn service. Now, if anybody has cut grass before, it's not easy. But it was a great bonding tool, I guess, for me and him. So one of the first days we go out, you know, we're cutting the grass, but we don't talk. And all of a sudden he says, hey, I'm going to go check the answer machine, see if we got any more customers. Well, that became the pattern of what he would do. So it was basically Bruce cutting grass all over the place by himself. And that's part of the reason why I won't cut grass today, because I've had my feel of it. But as I got to know this man, his name was Bruce as well. I'm a junior, but I never called him father or dad or anything like that, or my biological mother. They were both Bruce and Deidre. My biological mother had me at age 17. Bruce was 21. So, you know, there's all kind of rules being broken there, but that's reality for me. That's my reality. So as I'm getting to know this man, I'm starting to learn that this isn't somebody that I think I want to be around too much. And so only thing he knew how to do was whoop me, yell at me, and that was about it. And so I finally had enough, and I decided I'm leaving. He lived in Los Angeles. I said, you know what? I don't think this is working out for me. I want to go back home. Him and his girlfriend at the time, they beg and plead for me to stay. Now, any other time I would stay. But this time I had a made-up mind. I said, I'm getting out of here. And so when I went to the bus station, the Greyhound, you know, bus station, there wasn't a lot of flying going on for people like me. Get to the bus station, he says to me, don't write me, don't call me. If you do, I'll tear up your letters, and if you call me, I won't accept your phone calls. This is my father. This is my father. Somebody that supposedly loves me, telling his son, don't call me, don't write me. I cried from that time, that bus ride, I cried all the way back home, which further hardened me. It hardened me, meaning I can't let people in because it seems like I'm the only person that gets hurt in this. And so as I continued on, just trying to piece things together, try to figure things out, I understood that life isn't stopping for me. I got to figure out a way to overcome all this stuff. So I love baseball, but I say basketball chose me because I excelled in basketball because our team was terrible in baseball in high school. So I had to get a job. It forced me to really look ahead. How am I going to get to college? My family doesn't have money. I don't get any help from anyone. I got to get a scholarship. I play basketball, but I didn't go at it saying, hey, basketball, I'm going to play in the NBA. I was looking at it from the collegiate standpoint of getting a scholarship. So what I did during that time, and it's hard for a lot of you youngsters to believe, but there were no caller ID back then. No caller ID. So I picked up the phone. I had about 5 colleges I'm going to call. And back then we had the rotary dial. So you had to, and I called Cal State Fullerton. A guy by the name of Donnie Daniels answered the phone. He's the coach there. I said, hey, Donnie, my name is Bill Engel. I'm calling about this kid named Bruce Bowen. He's really good. You need to check him out. It's a true story. So we were going to be in LA during that time at some point, and he said he would check us out. Call Coach Barry in San Jose. Hey, Coach Barry, this is Bill Engel. I got this kid named Bruce Bowen. You really should check out. Now, my whole point of doing all this was being active in the process of your future. That's what a lot of the kids are going to have to do as they continue on. They're going to have to be active in the process of where they want to go. And so I set forth the table for a coach to come check me out. It just so happened, because of those phone calls, I started getting scholarship offers. Now, if I would have sat back and said, well, no one understands that my mom's a drug addict and my dad told me never to call him again. Oh, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. There's always someone else's story that's a lot worse than yours. So you can't feel pity for yourself, but you can pick up that good book and start reading and learning more about what Christ has in store for us. When I went away to France to play, that's where I learned that scripture, I will never leave you nor forsake you, really hit home with me because I'm in France. Tony Park used to come watch me play when I was over there. So and that's not a joke. That's the truth. Tony would come watch me play. I would hang out with he and his family. Only God knew. I still think about that today. It's like, what if I would have been a jerk to Tony and his family? Next thing you know, we're teammates? Then I really wouldn't have seen the ball. So as I'm in France, so these are times where I'm really getting a chance to learn about the love of Christ. At that time, a surrogate family had taken me in, the Thrashers. I call them mom and dad. They're a pastor out in L.A., and they have a church in L.A., and it just seemed like, man, this is what I was missing. And you never know how, why, or when, or where somebody's going to step into your life. I've heard that term that people come in your life for a reason, and some come for a season. Some seasons are long, some seasons are short. But more importantly, all of you all that are here today are playing a big part in the season process of a lot of the young kids in the Arms of Hope program. And it's important for you guys not to make this just a short season, but to make it a long season. Because if there's anything worth doing, it's this type of opportunity that you have of shaping kids' lives that have had to go through some terrible circumstances, unfortunately, but it's you all that give them hope, because it's about repeating the cycle that they see as well, as far as the positivity things that they're seeing. They see that you're helping out. They see that there are people concerned about their future. When people told me that I couldn't do anything, it just gave me more incentive and more motivation to be all I could be, even though I wasn't in the Army. And it brings me to this point. You know, because this is my life, this is something that I live with every day. You know, I decided to wear a bow tie when I went to ESPN. You know, yeah, you guys get that bow tie? Bow tie, Bruce, Bowen. Pretty clever, huh? Well, that's not the reason why I wear a bow tie. That is not the reason. I wear the bow tie because, number one, it keeps me away from everyone else, because I'm different. I am different. A lot of people would tell you I'm really different. But, you know, when I went there, I knew that everybody else wear the nice ties, and, you know, they're where they are. Yeah, but there's nothing funky about that. There's nothing, you know, like a professor about that. There's nothing like a black tie event, a celebration. And so I came up with an acronym for the 3 letters of BOW. And that acronym is Being Optimistic Wins. Can you all say that for me one time, please? Being optimistic wins. All right, can I have a little enthusiasm with it this time? Being optimistic wins. That still wasn't good enough, huh? I don't know here. I need something better than that. I need everybody to stand up, because maybe that good chicken you just ate is starting to make you a little sleepy. Because it was some good chicken. I enjoyed that. I've been to a lot of these, and I tell you, this is the best food I've had. That's no joke. Now, on the count of 3, let me hear it enthusiastically. On the count of 3, B-O-W, and what that means to Bruce. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Being optimistic wins. Oh, I like it. You guys just need to stand up. Okay, have a sit down. Have a sit down. So, you know, we say, you know, it's all about positive things and thinking positively. Sometimes it's hard to when you're living the reality of something that's not good. Sometimes it's not easy in those situations. And so when you come up with something like that for me, it keeps me motivated. It keeps me going. It keeps me with an understanding that, hey, life hasn't even begun just yet. I still have a lot of work to do. And so, you know, those smart guys out there at ESPN that just can't seem to talk enough positive things about the Spurs, that's another story. You know, my boss kind of looked at me funny. He's like, yeah, you know, it was crooked in your set. I said, well, why didn't anybody tell me? Because that's their job. You don't let somebody go on with a crooked tie. And so I said, oh, you know, he said, well, you know, it looked, you know, it just doesn't, you know, you have any other ties, Bruce? I said, absolutely, I got plenty of bow ties. Now, and this thing, people have a problem with change. I came in different. I came in different as far as not the norm. And I don't mind stepping out, because there's going to come a time, as a lot of these kids have had to endure, where you have to step out on faith and hope for the best. You look at the mother here. She was so proud to be a part of this program. And, you know, it brought tears to my eyes back there, just watching her interact with her daughter before and then coming out here and speaking about that. It's not easy. It's not easy to be on that island by yourself. It's not easy to be on that island when you're playing basketball and guarding Kobe Bryant. Or better yet, Michael Jordan. That was my first introduction into that, and I almost jumped out of myself and said, yo, Bruce, you guarding Michael Jordan. I was like, I know. Michael shot a jump shot and he missed, and I almost went and hugged. You're like, oh, man. Yeah, that's right. Don't come here again. But it's about being out there sometimes on your own is one of the most humbling, fearful situations you can go through, especially with a family. Especially with a family. It's so difficult watching your parents argue or go through other situations that they shouldn't go through, and you're the one that has to be the mediator. Kids didn't ask for that. Kids didn't ask to come into this world. It is our jobs as parents to do our best to help them out. And thank goodness for Arms of Hope, because they're taking up the slack where someone else left off. If we could have so many more opportunities to affect kids' lives like this, I guarantee you our graduation rate will go up. I guarantee you we'll have more kids seeking education. It's such a tragedy today that kids don't even realize that 18 is not old. I heard a kid say one day, you know, if I made it to 18, hey, I feel I made it. I'm like, made it where? But this is the reality that we're dealing with. And so I use those 3 letters every single day. Being optimistic wins. Being optimistic wins. Because as I said, it's a daily process for me to get over a lot of the hurts that have transpired in my life. And I must get over those obstacles if I want to be effective. If I want to be a good parent to my kids. And so, with that being said, I thank you all for this time and this opportunity to just hear out a little something from me. Because sometimes people think, oh, you know, hey, you're that basketball guy. Oh, man, shoot, nothing was ever wrong with him. Oh, boy, if you only knew. If you only knew the chastisement I used to take from Greg Popovich, oh, my goodness. I always got to tell this story. Pop, I would, you know, I didn't just get under the skin of opponents. I would get under Pop's skin sometimes, unbeknownst to me. No, sometimes I knew, and I was just going to do it anyway. But there's this game in Atlanta, and, you know, Pop was on the kick. I say he was on the kick because he was like, oh, you're going to be Tracy McGrady this year, huh? You want to shoot all the time. I said, man, I don't shoot enough. You say, Tracy McGrady, he shoots 15 times a game. Manu shoots 15, Tony shoots 37, and Tim shoots 20. Where's my shots, Pop? Huh? Where's my shots? And so he was on this little kick, and it just so happened, shot clock running down, I drive the lane, and I put up a finger roll. I thought I was ice for a second. I was more or less like water, because I was like this short from the rim, and the shot clock was running down, and time's running out before the half, and Atlanta gets the ball, they go down, all the way down, and they score, and I'm still at the other end of the court, and I got to walk this way, because our bench is this way, and our locker room's this way, so I'm all the way back here, and when it happens, I'm like, oh, I know he's going to be waiting for me, he's going to be waiting for me, he's going to be waiting for me, and I look down on purpose, and so I look up, and Pop is sitting there like this. And I'm like, man, okay, Bruce, you better come up with something quick because you're getting closer, you're getting closer, you're getting closer. And he just, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I said, Pop, if I knew what I was doing, I wouldn't do it. And like sometimes like you guys could do this with your bosses. You know, when your bosses are going off, just throw something at them that they just won't. And he was like, don't you do that Eddie Haskell stuff with me. Don't you do that Eddie Haskell stuff with me. And now I feel like, hey, I'm onto something. You know, that whole kill him with kindness. You know, this is working. So I said, Pop, you know, if I known you get this upset, I definitely wouldn't do it. I'm not trying to do this. And now he's red. Now I'm kind of scared too because Pop used to say he goes Serbian, and he would, like, I almost said, breathe, Pop, breathe. And so I'm able to get away from it a little bit, and I get into the locker room, and PJ Carlissimo says, PJ used other words a lot, but he's like, boy, you sure did screw up our coaches meeting at halftime. I'm like, PJ, what? I don't want to hear it. You've done enough already. Now I'm like, whoa. So the third quarter, I went out, I had 16 points in the third quarter, and when Pop had to take me out, he said, I got to take Bruce out because he's really making me eat crow right now. and I say all this to say that I could have gotten a big head from that or reacted a different way, but I love Pop. Pop has allowed me to become a better individual from taking the high road. He used to talk to me a lot about, hey, Bruce, it's important to take the high road. Taking the high road will always be your best bet. And so, you know, those little examples there, those little stories, they always bring back to what's really important. And that's not dwelling on the things that may be taking place right now, but how can we move forward and be better about things? So with that being said, I appreciate it. I thank your time. Thank you so much. Arms of Hope, you're doing a fantastic job, and I just thank you for allowing me to be a wonderful part of this. Thank you so much.